organized manner. Today's topic is going to be furthering myeloma research in search for a cure. A little bit of a tongue twister there. We wanted to do a deep dive into the research that's done at the HealthTree Foundation so that you can better understand what we are doing and what we need patients to do in order to get to a myeloma cure. Today, we will be sharing past studies and surveys that we have conducted and what those findings are telling us. We will also tell you about what's in the works for the future. Today, to share that information, this exciting information with you, is Nathan Sweeney. He has a PhD. Dr. Sweeney is the manager of clinical research for the HealthTree Foundation and a pediatric cancer survivor himself. He has 13 years of research experience, including undergraduate research in the University of Utah, doctoral research in cancer biology at the University of Arizona, and postdoctoral research at the Huntsman Cancer Institute, which is located in Salt Lake City, Utah. When he's not researching cancer, you can find him mountain biking, fishing, or playing make-believe with his 6-year-old daughter. Nathan, we're excited to hear from you today. The time is now yours if you want to get started.
Great. Thank you. Does this look okay, Audrey?
Yes.
Okay, I'm actually too far ahead. Okay, all right, great. I'm super excited to talk to everyone. I believe this is just my second time doing a presentation. And so if this is your second time listening to me, thank you. And if this is your first time, I hope you enjoy some of the research that I have to present. And I look forward to the questions at the end. So I'm going to be talking about furthering myeloma research and some of the research that we do here at the HealthTree Foundation. To start, I just want to explain how we conduct research here at the HealthTree Foundation. So there's two options that we can use. So the first option is when patients share their stories and their experiences, and if they consent to share their medical records, we can upload all that information into HealthTree Cure Hub. And if medical records are involved, then we have a team of doctors that actually verify the information that is being input correctly. So one of the important things about doing research is only as accurate as the data is. So we want to make sure that the information that gets incorporated into Cure Hub is accurate. So with the help of the patients and our team of patient experience members, which consists of doctors and nurses and all of them together, we have collected a database of information related to multiple myeloma. This process is very, very sacred to us. And so we don't take this lightly at all. We've incorporated a lot of safety nets in place so that none of the data is lost, stolen, or anything in that regard. We store all the data in the Google Cloud storage, which is a highly reputable storage location. It's used by banks, it's used by the government, it's regularly monitored. So I just want to assure that if there are any transfer of medical records from your clinic or hospital to HealthTree Cure Hub, it is well taken care of. So once we have that data, we can then mine it. And what that means is that we can ask questions and we can look into our database for the answers. One way I like to think of it is if you've ever used Netflix, there's an option that has recommended videos. Or if you've ever used Amazon and gone shopping, it'll have a section that says recommended purchases. And the way that they do this is based off of your history, your viewing history, your purchase history, and then it collects some recommendations for you. And so we try to do that similar process. So if someone comes in that's newly diagnosed and they want to know what treatment they should take, well, we can go and look at the history of other patients and then recommend a treatment pathway for them. The second option is just as beneficial. So with this option, we actually collaborate with myeloma specialists, and we put together surveys and studies. So some of you or many of you may have already participated in some of these, and we're always grateful for your participation. Come back often. We always have new studies and or surveys that are available, and continue to participate. It does a lot for us. It's really helpful. So we conduct these, we put together these surveys and studies, and then we present them through HealthTree Cure Hub for the patients to participate. And then we mine the answers. So continuing with, it says option 1. This is actually option 2, sorry. But actually both options. So both option 1 and 2. So the reason that we conduct the research that we do is because there's a lot of questions that are valuable questions that have really valuable answers, but the time and the costs are too much for multiple myeloma researchers. So we have the capability to go to these specialists and ask what questions that they've been yearning to ask and haven't been able to because they haven't been able to get funding or whatever the reason is, and we conduct it. We ask those questions. So one example is there was a team of doctors at the Huntsman Cancer Institute that wanted to ask a question about cure and basically what the patient perspective on cure is. And so we conducted that study for them. We offered it to patients through the HealthTree Cure Hub portal. And in 3 months' time, we got over 1,500 patients to participate. And it cost the team at Huntsman nothing. So we asked them if they didn't use us, how much would it cost them and how long would it have taken? And they approximated that it would have been anywhere from 1 to 1.5 years and well over $100,000. So this is a huge benefit, not just for the patients, but also to the researchers that are trying to improve treatments and find a cure as well. Okay, so one of the questions that we were curious about, and this is looking at option 1. So this is mining the information that patients have provided us. And so one of the questions that we wanted to ask was that we had recently found a paper that indicated here on the screen that said that blood type may influence the overall survival for multiple myeloma patients. So we wanted to see if there was a relationship between the survival of multiple myeloma patients and their blood type. So just a quick overview on what blood type is. So all of us have a blood type. It's either A, B, AB, or O. And each of these blood cells have a tag. And that tag's called an antigen. And that antigen is so that our body can recognize it as itself. If we ingest a bacteria or some kind of virus, it won't have this tag. And so our body will recognize it as an invader or foreigner and will remove it. So most of us, except AB blood, have antibodies that recognize non-self. So we have these antibodies that are going to find these tags on cells. And if it doesn't, if it matches, then it's basically going to label the cell as a foreigner and needs to be removed. So just the takeaway in this slide is just to remember A, B, AB, and O. So how do you determine what blood type you have? Well, you can ask your doctor. If you don't already know, you can ask your doctor. And if your doctor doesn't know, then it can be found out through just some simple lab work. They'll take your blood and there's a simple process and it'll determine what your blood type is. It's also helpful to know if you ever need, if you're ever in trouble and either need to donate or receive blood. Okay, so with that, we analyzed the self-reported blood type of 1,173 patients from HealthTree. And you can see the numbers here. So Majority of patients were either type A or type O, and then there were some patients that were type B and AB. We then wanted to look at overall survival. And if there was a correlation to risk level. So overall survival is basically taking into account their time to diagnosis to the last time we've contacted them. And what we found was that the survival in days, the average of days, was similar between blood type A, B, and AB. However, blood type O had a significant higher average days of survival than the other blood types. As blood type relates to risk level, we found that there was no significant difference. So it doesn't matter what blood type you have, it's not going to be indicative of whether you have standard or high risk multiple myeloma. However, if you do have O blood type, then that could be an indication that your survival will be, your overall survival will be longer compared to other blood types. So I just mentioned bullet point 1, 2, and the third one says that our results may help lead to further research investigating why while despite having a similar proportion of patients who are considered high risk, patients with O blood type differ in average survival time. So basically, what the indications of this is, we still don't know. Why patients with type O have a longer survival time, we don't know. But now that we know that there is a difference, we can now dig a little bit deeper and see if we can identify causing factors in that. So another question that we wanted to look into was disparities. So there's a lot of disparities that are between races. And we wanted to see if we can identify ones in particular that may affect outcome for patients. So one of them is insurance. Insurance type and regional income have been associated with worse multiple myeloma survival. And Black Americans often experience delays in care, are undertreated, and lack access to multiple myeloma specialists. Other races are less dramatic, but also experience disparity in their care. So we wanted to investigate if there was a relationship between insurance type and race. So first I want to just clarify what disparity is. So disparity is a noticeable and usual significant difference or dissimilarity. So we performed a retrospective analysis. So this is looking back from this point backwards on 1,240 patients with multiple myeloma from HealthTree. And we analyzed whether there was an association between race and insurance. So we separated race into two categories. White was classified as Caucasian American, and non-white was Black American, Asians, American Indian, East Indian, Middle Eastern, and Native Hawaiian. And the number of patients in each of those groups are indicated in that in the table. White was 1,051, and non-white was 189. Next, I just want to briefly explain the difference between Medicaid and Medicare. So I'm not an expert in insurance by any means, but I found a website that I felt was gave a pretty good summary. And basically it says that Medicare is an insurance program, while Medicaid is an assistance program. So patients with Medicaid encounter more barriers associated with their care, such as decreased acceptance by physicians, difficulty obtaining doctor appointments, and difficulty scheduling a specialty appointment. So this is interesting. It kind of is foreshadowing what our result's going to be, because these are the same things that Black Americans are experiencing. So our analysis revealed a significant association between the two groups and what type of insurance they had. Specifically, non-whites are more likely to have Medicaid. So our conclusion is that we need to address the underlying cause of the findings And if we do, we could extinguish multiple myeloma related barriers associated with patient care, as well as increase survival in non-white races. So basically what I'm saying here is that if we can identify these underlying causes of why there's this disparity between insurances, then we can, again, dig deeper and improve change these outcomes. And as a result, we should see an increase in survival in non-white races. So the third question that we were interested in looking in was another disparity related one, but we specifically looked at just Black Americans. So Black Americans have a 2 to 3 time, that seems a little grammatically incorrect. Black Americans are 2 to 3 times, maybe I should just read it. Okay, Black Americans have 2 to 3 times multiple myeloma incidence and mortality as compared to whites. However, increasing research is demonstrating that many of these genetic Let me try again. However, increasing research is demonstrating that many may have genetic characteristics that have better survival outcomes. So while the incidence is higher in Black Americans, they also have genetic characteristics that may promote a better survival. Unfortunately, delay in diagnosis and inappropriate first lines of therapy often wipe out whatever advantage they may have had, keeping mortality statistics higher than would be expected. And patients who receive treatment by a high volume provider, meaning a multiple myeloma specialist, is a factor that can help patients with multiple myeloma to have a longer life expectancy. So this is a good point to emphasize, whether you're Black American or of another race, just emphasizing the importance of a multiple myeloma specialist can improve your life expectancy. So the purpose of this study was to analyze whether there was a disparity between race and receiving care from a multiple myeloma specialist, which may contribute to a difference in survival that's being seen. So are Black Americans less likely to see a specialist compared to Caucasian Americans? So what we did is we examined the patient's race, which was either Caucasian American or Black American, and whether or not they were being treated by a myeloma specialist. So our results found that there was a significant association between the two races and whether or not they had a myeloma specialist. Basically, the takeaway was that Black Americans were less likely to be treated by a myeloma specialist. So the findings of this real-world analysis identify a glaring disparity in Black American multiple myeloma patients in receiving care from a multiple myeloma specialist. So there's still underlying questions that should be addressed, and that's the big question is why? Why aren't Black Americans? Is it not knowing the difference between a specialist and a primary care physician or general oncologist? Is it lack of availability in these cities or regions that Black Americans may be more populated? There's usually answering one question answers or opens a can of worms of new questions. So, but we can take away that there is a difference in Caucasian Americans and Black Americans and whether they see a specialist. So I want to go back to that one point of the importance of seeing a myeloma specialist. On HealthTree, so if you go to HealthTree.org, there is an option that you can find a myeloma specialist. And I took a screenshot of what it looks like. So wherever you're located, whether it's region or state, you can find a doctor that will specialize in multiple myeloma care. And so it's my recommendation that you utilize this site that you find a specialist and you get an appointment with them. I do want to state that doctors do move around. So we try to keep this list current, but if you can't find one, you just may have to click on a different center or hospital and find a different one. So I've been talking about option 1 a lot. What about option 2? So remember, option 2 was when we conduct surveys. So all that I was talking about, just as a reminder, was we were mining the data that patients had provided us. And this had shed some insights on care, on how to increase survival, how to improve outcomes. But we also utilize option 2. And we've actually have done some surveys recently. So one of them I mentioned at the beginning of my presentation is a study that we conducted with a team from the Huntsman Cancer Institute. I'm not going to try to say the first doctor's name because I will butcher it, but I believe the second one is Saborov. But both of them are wonderful doctors. It's been a pleasure working with them. But we conducted a study that was entitled "A Patient Perspective on Cure in Multiple Myeloma." So the reason I'm not showing the results is because you can see that it's completed. The reasons I'm not showing the results right now is because we've quickly submitted it for publication. So we submitted it as an abstract to ASCO. ASCO is a national conference that focuses on blood cancers, including multiple myeloma. And so we're going to share our findings nationally. When you submit an abstract, you agree you agree on an embargo. So basically saying that you give the rights to ASCO to publish the results. And then once it's published, we can then share it. So I'm not sharing those results right now because we're waiting on it to get published. But as soon as it is, we'll notify everyone and let them know the results and the outcome. We're also going to be submitting a manuscript. So manuscript is, an abstract is just basically a summary, and then the manuscript is a detailed explanation. And so we're going to be submitting the manuscript. So it was a really productive study that we're able to publish results on it. And again, I want to thank everyone. So it was a incredible turnout. We advertised it, I think, through email and Facebook, and patients responded in droves. Like I said, in just 3 months, we had over 1,500 patients participate. And these doctors were floored. They were just, like, when we told them the results, their jaws just dropped. So a huge thank you for those that participated. And if you're interested in participating in future surveys and studies, we will have more that are going to be coming soon that I'm going to talk about in the next slide. But stay tuned, and we definitely need your support. Another survey that we conducted was one that was specifically for African Americans. And this was more for internal learning. We just wanted to know how we should conduct our programs that's going to be centered around African American patients. And this was through Marcia Calloway Campbell, wonderful lady that has been helping us with the African American community. Something that's ongoing, so here's something that patients could participate in if they haven't already, is that we are trying to do, or let me rephrase that, we are doing a genetic study and looking at real world outcomes. So this is a request from Dr. Morgan and Dr. Diamond and their respective cancer centers. And basically what we're looking at is we're going by mutation and trying to identify the best or most successful induction treatment, followed by line of therapy, followed by treatment pathway. So we're taking it bite sizes and going through each genetic mutation and then trying to identify the best treatment pathway. Our goal is that if the patient gets diagnosed and let's say they get a 414 translocation, what would be the best or most optimal treatment pathway for them? So we can do this crowd analysis of all myeloma patients that we have in our database and then formulate through statistics and analyses, and paint a picture of this is the most effective induction treatment, this is the next best treatment, and if you continue in this pathway, it's been analyzed that you'll have at least 15-year survival or more. Some of our math is limited by present time, so we can't predict the future, but we can look back and look at that. So these are some things that we've done, that we are doing in regards to option 2, and these are some things that we will be doing with option 2. So we're going to be doing a fun study. Now I say fun because I'm going to be an onlooker. I think it's going to be tough for those that are going to be involved in it, because I tried a plant-based diet once and it was tough. So that's why I say that. But they're gonna, Dr. Shaw, who's an absolute genius when it comes to this diet, nutrition, and multiple myeloma. She's given presentations for us before, just wonderful. But she's going to be doing a study where she's going to look at the microbial changes in response to either a plant-based diet or supplements in smoldering multiple myeloma patients. So yes, you heard me right. This study will be specifically for smoldering patients. But essentially, what I was going to say is, this is just going to be what's the word I'm looking for? I'm blanking on the word, but it's going to be a small study that's going to take in 100 patients, and then we're going to snowball those results into a larger study that's going to take in more. So if you have smoldering multiple myeloma and are interested, you can reach out to HealthTree. You can reach out to me. This is something that's going to be, it's still a little ways away, probably looking at 4 to 6 months away, because we're getting some approvals and getting everything ready. But if you're interested, feel free to let us know, and we will notify you when we're about to start. The other study that's going to be coming soon, and this one's probably a little bit further, probably a year away, but it's going to be a fitness study and multiple myeloma. And this is a request from Jens Hillengas, again, another all-star in the myeloma field. But this is a funny thing. We were talking the other day, and he was saying that a lot of times patients will ask him, what can I do? You know, now that I'm diagnosed as a myeloma patient, what can I do? And he said that what they used to say was, because of patients and their, in some cases, because of the frailness of their bones, they would often encourage them to be complacent, basically, to take it easy, to relax. But he said that his medical advice was often ignored, and patients would still go out and ride bike and walk and go for hikes and still be active. And so he said, instead of telling them to ignore activity and for them to not listen, what if he could actually have some scientific evidence and be able to tell patients what actually works? So does walking benefit? Does it delay progression? Does that improve outcomes? Does biking or does any kind of gardening, any kind of activity or fitness level, does that help? So there's actually hasn't been a formal study like this. There's been some kind of a general consensus, a general understanding that being active is good, which is why we have Muscles for Myeloma and our HealthTree Moves app. But there hasn't been a formal study, and so we want to conduct it with Dr. Hillengas and then have some scientific backing to say yes. And so we're looking forward to that one. We're looking forward to all of these, and we hope that you are too. So in conclusion, patients have the power to advance a multiple myeloma cure by sharing their multiple myeloma experiences and stories. So again, I can't emphasize enough just the vital role that all of you patients play in this research. I'm totally in love with research. I feel like my whole life has been invested in cancer and cancer research. And so knowing that I'm able to conduct this research and potentially improve a patient's life it means the world to me. So I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for all that you patients have done, whether it's sharing your stories and experiences or participating in studies. It really does mean a lot, and you're the lifeblood of the foundation. So with that, I want to thank you, and I will happily take any questions that you may have.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Nathan, for sharing with us. We're getting some questions. Beth is saying, I did try the link to the 414 study you discussed and could not get the link to work. Would you include it in the recording? So I can get that from you afterwards, and we'll send that in the resource email if that works.
Yeah.
The 1114 study. It is active on HealthTree Cure Hub, right?
So the 414 study, no, so that's
Sorry, I meant 414. I said 1114.
So on Cure Hub, it's going to be called the genetic study. The 414 is a link for it's an analysis that we've done so far. So one of the reasons I'm advocating for participation in that is because having a sufficient population size is really important for our statistic analysis. So for 414, it's one of the things that we've dealt with is just not having a high enough patient population. And so the results that we have there are kind of just our overviews, but we'd like to go a little bit deeper. And so the more patients that participate and input their genetic information, we can get more profound answers, better answers and better options for patients with that respective mutation.
Okay. I had a question about one of the studies involving disparities. How much do we trust the data considering there was such a small percentage of non-whites compared to whites? I mean, is that accurate data that we're receiving since we only tested 150 of them versus 2,000?
Yeah, so the good thing is that we're taking the statistical analysis into consideration. So it's going to factor the discrepancy in numbers. So yeah, ideally, a 50-50 comparisons would be wonderful, but the difference that we have is taken into consideration. And the thing that we want to look at is the significance level. So we're considering something significant if it has a p-value of less than 0.05. And basically what that means is that when you look at p-value, you're considering what's the likelihood of this happening kind of just randomly or by chance. And what this tells us is that it's not happening by chance, that this is an actual cause, or this is really happening. So the significance or the p-value on both of the disparity cases are significant. So regardless of the difference in the patient population, I think it's still telling. I think it still tells a story there.
Okay. And what are we doing, or what is the research team doing in order to get more people of color involved in these studies?
Yeah, so I mean, it's a great question, and we're working closely with Marcia Calloway Campbell to reach out to the African American community. We do think that HealthTree isn't just a patient portal for majorities, for whites or whatnot. This is for everyone with multiple myeloma, and so we think everyone can benefit. And the research that we're conducting isn't just biased to benefit one race or another. It's going to be to benefit everyone. So working with Marcia Calloway Campbell to reach out to the African American community, conducting studies that will benefit the whole multiple myeloma community. These are ways that we're trying to improve our research efforts for African Americans.
Awesome. Thank you. There's definitely time for more questions if you guys have questions as they come forward. I'm trying to think if I have anything else. It was a good summary. Maybe you can talk a little bit more about your experience with cancer and why that inspired you as we're waiting for more questions to come.
Yeah, so that's a great question. So I was diagnosed when I was 16 months. So like my cancer is the opposite of my multiple myeloma because it seems to affect those that are older, and then mine tends to affect those that are younger. So I was diagnosed when I was 16 months. I underwent cancer therapy twice. So I did chemotherapy, radiation until I was 3. I was pronounced cured. I relapsed, and then I went chemo again until I was about 8. And there was I still remember it vividly. So I remember going to see the doctor, and my doctors were great. I wish I've been trying to get my medical records. So I totally understand patients that have a hard time with this because I requested mine like 2 years ago, and I'm still waiting to get mine. But anyway, so I had wonderful doctors. I had one doctor that said, would tell me that I can beat this. So he says, you can beat this. And I would get home and I would ride my bike up and down my street, just racing up and down as fast as I could. And my mom came out one time and I'm out of breath, I'm panting. And she goes, what are you doing? And I told her, I'm trying to beat the cancer. And so I took that a very literal term. And fortunately, as you can tell, I did beat it. And but the thing I want to mention is that what HealthTree offers now is what we wanted then. And so this is a dream come true. This is something that not only could benefit people now, but it could have benefit people years ago. So not just this ability to accumulate data, but also to have this support community. So I know my mom, this was basically just me and my mom at the clinic, day after day. Times when I had to spend the night, my mom was there. So I think she would have also benefited from communities, from so many things that HealthTree has to offer. And so yeah, like I said, I wish we had it then, but now that I have it now, I want to be a part of it, and I'm thrilled to be in this position.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. I think it's fun to find people's why. Why do they work here? Neil has a great question. He said, of course, only a guesstimate, but how far in the future do you think a potential cure might be?
That's so when I was a grad student, we would wear these shirts that said working myself out of the job, because that is our goal. My goal definitely is to find a cure, and I would love to see it in my lifetime. I think that would be remarkable. And I don't think there's ever going to be like a magic pill that cures all, but I think we're gonna cure it by subgroup, a subgroup at a time. So I think right now there is a subgroup that gets cured from multiple myeloma. And so I think the next step is to try to find the next subgroup that we can cure. And this next subgroup could be those that benefit from CAR T therapy. Mm-hmm. And so those that get CAR T, they could potentially be cured, and time will really tell us if 10 years, 15 years from now, they still haven't relapsed, then we can officially classify it as a cure. So I think we're in the era of cures. So I think now and in the future, there'll be more to come, more cures to come.
Yeah, and I've heard myeloma specialists say that they hope it's within the next decade. So they're hopeful, and I hope you guys know that myeloma specialists are working hard and researchers are working hard to find this cure, and are hopeful that within the next decade, I mean, think about the last decade and how much growth we've seen in the myeloma field, the new therapies that are coming out that are significantly less invasive and so much more successful. I mean, it is now, instead of 2 years, normal survival, we're looking at 10 plus on average normal survival for multiple myeloma patients. So it's really exciting, just the progress that we've had so far. And like Nathan said, there's good things to come, and it's in the air, and we can feel it and hope to see it. There's a lot of hope in this field. There's lots of good questions. I like George's question, and I'd like to talk about it. He's asking about, he is Asian and struggles with finding interpreters in the clinic that can accurately communicate between him and the doctor for his wife. I think that's something that we see also in the Hispanic community. What's being done here in order to help, these disparate communities in with problems of translating?
So, that's so. First, I just want to sympathize. When I was an undergraduate, I did try to be an interpreter at the University of Utah Hospital for Spanish individuals, and I served a church mission where I spoke Spanish for 2 years, and so I felt very comfortable. But I abruptly came to realize that my Spanish dictionary, my Spanish vocabulary was very specific to gospel-related subjects. And so the reason I share that is because I know that hospitals try to provide interpreters, and these interpreters should be qualified. They go through a vetting process that they should be able to interpret well. So if you can find a hospital that has interpreters that can interpret for you, then I think that would be huge. I think they would be very beneficial. As far as doctors that speak, is it Chinese? Or
He just said Asian, so I'm
Asian?
not sure.
I'm confident there's some out there. And if you do search these specialists, a lot of times they will indicate what other languages they're proficient in. And so if you go to that specialist page and look for a specialist, hopefully you can find one that speaks your native language.
Yeah, and I think especially as we're looking into disparities as well, that's something to consider. When we look at people that are native English speakers, how much is that affecting their care? Because it could be significant, and that's something that we can push with the doctors of making sure they have those vetted translators available for their patients.
Very good point.
Do doctors contact HealthTree on ideas to research, or do the patients come up with items to study? So in terms of what we do, is it doctors that are reaching out to us, or is it us doing things based off of patient need or request?
All of it. So doctors will come to us. We'll go to doctors. Patients will reach out to us. All of our ideas, as much as I'd like to brag, they're not nearly my ideas. These are great ideas that are shared with me, and I just get the privilege to look into them. If you have an idea of something you want to research, we're open. Feel free to email and contact. Other ideas that we get are from these conferences that we attend. So we attend these national conferences, and we just kind of, feel what the general sense is. Where's the research field going, and how can we help? And so, in ASH, the American Society of Hematology, that was this past December, there was a lot of discussion about CAR T and a lot of discussion about real world data. And so we have the real world data, and we would love to collaborate and contribute. So we feel like we're in a good place to really kind of lead in the research area.
Awesome. And yeah, I would just echo that as well. We love getting ideas. We love partnering with doctors, all of the above. We just want to make research accelerate in the myeloma field. Eloise is saying that she's participated in several of the studies, but some don't sound familiar. How do we notify patients about different surveys and studies that are released? Or do we invite people that we think that it's applicable to?
Yeah, no, exactly that. This is the latter one. So, so some of these studies, we want to make sure. So if you participate in a clinical trial, you'll go through like a vetting process just to make sure that you qualify. So it's nothing unusual, but in some studies we conduct, we want to make sure we get a specific population. So if when we did the survey for the African American community, we looked at our database, and those that identified as African American, we sent email notifications to them and made it the survey available to them. So there are some cases that we make it only available to specific groups, depending on what kind of question we're asking. And then once I don't know. I honestly, I don't know when the deadline is. If we're working with a collaborator, if they say that's enough, then we switch off the survey. And so it may have been there and then it's gone now if you did qualify. The ways that we notify is by email. So email is a big way that we communicate. So one thing that you can do is check and see if it's accidentally going into your spam folder. And you can just mark it as not as spam so that you can get notified of these surveys.
And also kind of being aware of what email you registered with, right? Because I think a lot of our patients register with a different email for their HealthTree Care Hub than they're checking regularly. Sorry to interrupt.
No. That's a good point. I have like 5 emails, and I have a filler email as well. The ones that anyway. So yeah, make sure if you want to be getting emails that it's with your most current, most accurate email address. But also we notify through social media. So we try to reach out in a couple of different avenues. And then you can always check in, go to your patient portal, click on the surveys and studies, and if there's anything there, then participate.
Yeah, awesome. A couple more questions. How do you personally think that being physically active can help with treatments?
Personally, how do you?
He's not a medical doctor. I'm just going to throw that out.
So kind of as a joke, just going back to my story, the cancer can't keep up with you if you race your bike. It just kind of lingers behind. And no, so seriously, I think it improves your quality of life. So and that's important because being optimistic, having a healthy mindset can do wonders. And I don't know if there's, personally, I don't know if there's an identified, if there's like a genetic marker or identified marker that says, exercise increases this protein and which combats the cancer. I don't know if that's an actual thing, but I think it's just the sense of mental health, physical well-being. I think in that regard, that's how it can benefit. There's been like a correlative study where they've and this was done in Oregon. I can't remember it's the Health Science Center there in Oregon, but they said that they had on their first floor of their facility is dedicated to exercise and fitness. And they did this correlative study that patients that attended this facility tended to do better than those that didn't. And so, yeah, I don't know if we can actually put our thumb on the exact thing, but from what we hear, there seems to be some promising indications of physical activity. So if you're capable, you have my support to be a little active and do something.
Yeah. Something that I'd add to that, as I talk to different myeloma specialists and even nutritionists, dietitians, um, physical exercise specialists, one of the things that they mention over and over is that exercise hasn't been proven yet to, eradicate myeloma or to stop myeloma progression, but it has been proven to improve comorbidities and to even heal or reverse comorbidities. And by doing that, if you have, I can't get into too specifics because everybody's different with different comorbidities, but if you're working on feeding your body correct foods, exercising, strengthening your body, reducing your comorbidities, then your body is going to be able to use the chemotherapies, immunotherapies that you're using to fight cancer in a better way. You're going to have less inhibitors to a stem cell transplant, for example, if you have less comorbidities. And it improves your body as a whole, like Nathan was saying, your physical well-being, your mental well-being, emotional well-being. And that is what helps you fight the cancer a little bit better. That's what we know so far. Whether exercise literally stops myeloma progression, that would be awesome to know. And something like he said, Dr. Hillengass is wanting to know as well. But if you're working with a cancer exercise specialist, because you also don't want to outdo yourself and hurt yourself by exercising too hard. So there's obviously a happy medium that you have to find for yourself, depending on bone lesions and different things like that. But just know that if you are working with cancer exercise specialists who are aware of what you're doing, exercise can be extremely good for you on all fronts and give you the confidence and the health to fight the cancer.
That's a good point. So there's not a graph that says the more you exercise, or the harder you exercise, the healthier you're going to be.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, we don't want anyone to over exercise and get injured or hurt themselves or anything in that regard. But there does seem to be that some kind of activity does help. So keeping it at a healthy level is recommended.
Yeah. And actually tonight we're going to be joined by your wife, who is the fitness exercise manager here at the HealthTree Foundation. And she's going to be talking actually with her mom, your mother-in-law, about turning daily activities into exercise and how you can find movement in your everyday in order to improve your health. So that's going to be tonight at 7 p.m. Eastern. I'll announce that in just a minute if you guys are interested. For the last question, I'm glad that we're brought back to the subject, because I think it's important to clarify. Lynn is wondering, what is the subgroup that you think is cured? When you spoke earlier about, there might be that subgroup. Let's go.
Yeah. So, okay.
Not.
So I think the first thing we need to do is define what cure is. So I think people have different interpretations of what cure is. So my interpretation is no sign of the disease, not taking any medicine. But doctors may have a different definition. There's the definition of functionally cured, where the cancer is just dormant or maintained or suppressed. And so I guess it depends on your definition of cure. However, if we use that initial definition that I used, of that there's no sign of disease, not taking any medicine, I don't know who the subgroup is, but I do know, and I'll have to find the paper and share it. But that paper, it was written by Dr. Rafael Fonseca, and he says that there's a subgroup. So whether he said more about that, I don't remember. But the other thing that I'll just add is that the cancer is very heterogeneous. So meaning that it has the same title as multiple myeloma, but the mutations make it diverse. So it's kind of like a flower garden. You have your roses, your tulips. They're all flowers, but they're different. And so every patient has multiple myeloma, but they have different cancer genetics. And so whether it's just the genetics or there's a little bit more that's involved to it, I'm not sure. But there does seem to be a subpopulation that has been cured, and there could potentially be a population that is cured from by undergoing CAR T therapy. So yeah, I'll try to find that paper by Dr. Hillengass and see if we can share it as well. Or Hillengass, sorry, Dr. Fonseca.
Fonseca. Yeah, no, it's okay. Yeah, and I think it's important to say, we don't know yet, and this is very early findings, but we're excited about it, and we'll keep you updated with anything that we are learning, because the whole community wants to find a cure. Just a couple comments about exercise. We have a patient that's saying, I'm working with a cancer rehabilitation physical therapist with a personalized exercise program and diet program, and it has worked tremendously. And they have companies, their company has facilities across the whole USA. So that is so exciting, and just goes to add to our discussion that we had earlier. Thank you so much, Nathan, for joining us. We really appreciate learning more about the research that's being done. Even me, who works in the same office as Nathan, has learned something today about the work that he and his team are doing. So thank you so much, Nathan, for
Thank
sharing
you.
with us. You might be interested in our next event in April. The date is still up in the air because life is up in the air sometimes. But it's going to be talking about our program called HealthTree University that offers free myeloma education for everyone. We have a new HealthTree University video product manager. His name is Clark Ahlstrom. He is Jenny Ahlstrom's son, and he's working with Cindy Shimoleski, who is the program director who leads content. And they're going to be coming to speak to us about this program, what units are new to HealthTree University for your education. And they always are open for feedback and ideas of what to add to HealthTree University in order to improve your myeloma education as well. You may be interested in other Myeloma Crowd community events that we have coming up. I forgot to say, you will be notified as soon as that event is ready to register for, to learn more about HealthTree University if you're interested in that. So tonight, as I mentioned, at 7 p.m. Eastern, is the HealthTree Moves for Myeloma chapter, previously known as the Muscles for Myeloma chapter. We're going to be talking about how to turn daily tasks into physical activity with HealthTree Moves, and that is from Sweeney, who is Nathan's wife. So that's fun. And we are in the middle of March. March is Myeloma Awareness Month, and we are in the middle of a challenge. If you want to download the HealthTree Moves app on your phone, either in the app store if you have an iPhone, or in the Google Play Store if you have an Android or Google phone, you'll be able to participate with us in that movement challenge. It's really exciting and fun to do together, and I'm sure we're going to be talking about it more tonight. So HealthTree Moves on your phone, and you'll be able to sync it with your Fitbit or your Apple Watch, or enter your movement in manually. It's really exciting, so we want you to join. The 10th at 6:30 p.m. Eastern is our highly anticipated Northeast Myeloma Community Chapter. If you live anywhere from Maine all the way to Pennsylvania, we do invite you to join us for this exciting chapter launch. Jenny Ahlstrom, the founder of HealthTree and Myeloma Crowd, will be joining us to share about our different programs, and also some infographics in the area that Nathan actually created with his team. So we're really excited to get that started on the 10th. Then on the 15th is our Relapsed Refractory for Myeloma Patients chapter. Dr. Luciano Costa is joining us to talk about how daratumumab is used to treat high-risk myeloma patients. The link to sign up for any of those events and even more events that I have not mentioned is found at the bottom of this slide and will be sent out in our follow-up email. As always, I would like to thank our sponsors again: Bristol Myers Squibb, Amgen Oncology, Genentech, Adaptive Biotechnology, Sanofi, Janssen Oncology, Karyopharm Therapeutics, Takeda Oncology, and AbbVie. Thank you each for joining us and helping us build a strong Myeloma Crowd community. I appreciate you and hope that you have a great rest of your day. Thanks so much.